a lot of the messy details of actually implementing decision markets and how we plan to make MetaDAO better. So I guess to preface this talk, like, I feel like there kind of needs to be a vibe shift for MetaDAO of, like, I think a lot of people outside this room basically view us as like, oh, those are kind of like those financial guys who are like obsessed about this thing called NAV and want to impose a bunch of restrictions on founders. And when really what this is all about is like funding great businesses and having them take off. So I think like part of this perception is going to be corrected by just like having great businesses and having them take off. I mean, it's like awesome to me that like, I mean, yeah, Credible, which is going to start raising on Monday, is at $3.5 million run rate, growing 30% month over month for the last 6 months. Cracked founder who like previously exited a business, like an awesome growth story, just as a business. But also I think part of this is like changing the mechanism to be more, I won't even say the word founder friendly, but yeah, well, I'm going to talk about exactly what I think we need to change the mechanism to be. But yeah, I guess starting off with like what is working with the current system of MetaDAO. I mean, I think there's like two big things. One of them is that token, like MetaDAO whole thesis that you need to believe is that tokens can be helpful for businesses. Otherwise, you're just going to get adversely selected as a fundraising platform. And that decision markets can help mitigate rugs because tokens historically have had a big problem with rugs that like have made the system unsustainable. And yeah, both of those like appear to be true. Like founders, we saw with Avicii that founders can use tokens to radically accelerate their growth. They 10x their business by having a token and having all these people aligned. And then I think the Solomon recent proposal, I think Ranga actually may disagree with this take of like what I think, but to me, so the proposal for the context was it was moving $4.5 million into a program that would market make or like provide liquidity on USDV. So like essentially using that money to help their business, but it moves it out of the treasury. And so you kind of have to trust the like people. And I knew that when this proposal, like immediately when I saw this proposal go live, I felt like a sinking in my stomach because I knew that if I didn't know Ranga and I didn't like talk to him frequently, and I was just a crypto participant, I'd be like, holy crap, these guys are like, this looks really fishy. These guys are rugging, like they're transferring out $4.5 million. And yeah, I mean, I've been in crypto for 7 years. A lot of you have also been here for a while, and you know that like when something looks like bad behavior in crypto, it normally is bad behavior. And in this case, it wasn't. The money got transferred, and he's still here and not in the Bahamas with all the money. But it was actually the perfect outcome because, yeah, this was the highest volume decision market we've ever done. So it was like, it was contentious, but then it passed, which is like what you would exactly want to see. If it were not contentious and just it passed easily, then like probably they would have been able to, like it could have been ruggable, or that's evidence that at least it have been ruggable. And then if it failed, that would have been like a restriction on the founder, like you can't execute fast enough, but like the perfect thing happened, which is like sick. And yeah, I mean, total volume number is like not actually that high, but if you compare, like I've run the comparisons of volume per day compared to like Polymarket, and I think it would have been a top 10 market on Polymarket, because yeah, with Polymarket, obviously the markets run for a much longer time. And yeah, so that's kind of cool for like, that a market could be comparable to Polymarket with just like the existing base of futards that are trading these. And yeah, so what I would say is like the core problem of the mechanism is we need to reduce entropy. So there's chaos in the system. Like if you talk to a founder who doesn't want to raise on MetaDAO, a big part of their friction is that they don't know, they won't have certainty over the runway. There's a lot of unknowns for them about MetaDAO and having a token, and people generally don't like uncertainty. I mean, generally, if you're running a startup, you feel like you have enough uncertainty. I definitely feel that way. And so I think we need to reduce uncertainty at like a mechanistic level. And so this is what I would say is the biggest change that we're like that we're already developing. We haven't actually shipped any smart contract code to production for a few months, mostly because of AI and the risk to return not being worth it. But like we're developing a smart contract going through audit. So right now, the way it works is you can raise any proposal on MetaDAO on any project at any time, and it all goes through the same process. You need like the same amount of stake for them to go live. You can propose anything. They take 3 days generally, and if it's a community proposal, it's a little harder for it to get passed. I think 1.5% is the threshold that we have, and then if it's a team-led proposal, I think it's like a -3% threshold. If you know what that means, it means that if a team creates a proposal, it's a little easier for it to get passed. It like by default passes, and if a community raises a proposal, it's like by default fails. And that's not like if markets were, or if like our markets were perfectly efficient, that might be fine. But of course, I don't actually think that's the case. Like there's some people that are not watching all of these things. And so they're not participating, they're not providing their signals to the market. And then also people just don't necessarily trust that. And so the way that this will work is there will be a list of instructions that projects can execute. Of course, there will also be execute arbitrary, which will allow, and also all these numbers and like everything is subject to change. This is just illustrative. But that'll go through, it'll be much harder to pass those proposals. Like we're thinking probably a 10-day or like and a high proposal threshold. And yeah, like for example, hostile liquidations, like someone creating a proposal like we should shut this down. I think that should be longer than 3 days. Like that's a big corporate event. And it should be quite hard to happen. Not impossible because we do need them, but yeah, like a 25% threshold, for example, that would have allowed Ranger to be liquidated, but wouldn't allow, I don't believe any of the other MetaDAO projects to be liquidated today. And yeah, so, and this also allows us to get certain instructions down. So like teams spending up to 3x the money spending limit, that should probably be less than 3 days. Like if that could be done in a day and a half and with a lower proposal threshold, that would be quite nice and it will allow teams to execute faster. And so, yeah, this is all about, because this also, it's not just reducing uncertainty for teams, it's also reducing uncertainty for investors, especially this part. So I think a precondition of this working is having automated buybacks and sellbacks. So like buybacks are obviously a big part of how MetaDAO works today. We've caught a lot of flack. People are like, why are early stage startups buying back their token? It looks dumb. I do think that there is some kernel of truth to that, in that it hurts uncertainty, but you can actually run the math, and there's like, this is actually a really cool model. So some people have called it, I think Corey, you called it like liquid capital, right? Yeah, so you can run the math, like you can, this is a calculator that Claude built I'll just give you a simple example. Imagine you have $100 million, you invest $1 million into 100 startups, and each of them has two years of runway from that $1 million. So they're burning, yeah, 250K 125K every 3 months. So if after 6 months, every company should still have 750K. And then imagine you decided to like fully rug half of your, so yeah, actually, you decide to fully take capital out of the companies that like you've received new negative information about, like you no longer believe are going to be winners, and you move it all into the companies that you think have outperformed and have like done well, like you think the teams are executing well. And this has material improvements to your IRR, which is like the main thing that venture funds optimize for, or like DPI, TVPI, basically like how much money they're returning. So basically, and you can also run analysis on like how good is the market, like maybe only 60% of the time do you get new information, or like does the market show new information about the company, and pulling capital like out of bad companies into good ones. But it's still, you can run the numbers and like it shows pretty good performance. I think what I was seeing is, given a realistic assumption, it roughly doubles your returns. And yeah, so like we like this system where you take capital out of projects that new negative information has come out about, and then putting it into projects that are like overperforming and doing well. And so how this is going to work is there will be a sellable pool of tokens, and when the token is trading at some discount to NAV, like we still have to figure out what this could be. Maybe it's like 10%. The project buys tokens and they enter the pool. And then when it's trading at some premium to NAV, it sells tokens back into the market. And this pool can be topped up by governance. It can also be initialized with higher values. So like you could, for example, raise only half of what you want to, and like hope that, or like believe that if you execute, like you'll be able to sell tokens in the market. And then teams can also toggle this on and off. And so, yeah, if they believe that like they don't need to raise any more money because they already have enough and they don't want the incremental dilution, then they could turn it off. And yeah, I think this is quite elegant because it solves actually a lot of problems. Like one is that it allows us to be, like the original idea of Believe was like you launch this token and you can raise capital on a more fluid basis. And a lot of founders did that. Of course, there were yeah, founders that we would potentially want raising on MetaDAO. And you can actually get more, like if you think about it, a trading fee that's like 1%, I think Believe was 1.5% for founders. You can get more by selling into the market than you can by trading fees. And so you should be able to raise more than on Believe. And yeah, this also should help improve the PR around buybacks, because it's no longer like this PvP thing, or like there's no longer this narrative that people can say where like, oh, these like short-term proposers are creating a proposal to take money out of this high-quality project and just screwing everything up, versus like these holy teams that are like just doing the right thing, or like bad teams that you need to take money out of. Like that whole drama is just bad for everybody. And here it's just like, it's a transparent system where you buy tokens and sell tokens on some pre-agreed upon schedule. So probably the way it would work is like every treasury would have a half-life. So like maybe it could be 6 months, where at most you could lose 6 months of your treasury, you could lose half of your treasury over 6 months to buybacks, and at that point you could lose another half. So if you have $1 million, you could lose 500K over 6 months to buybacks, and then you could lose 125K, 250K. But yeah, this is something that we're working on. Another thing that we're doing post ZKFG is creating an oversight committee that has like, yeah, the ability to reject some proposals if they deem it like bad for the platform as a whole. I've been thinking more and more of MetaDAO as kind of a marketplace for capital. And the thing that all marketplaces have is some level of content moderation, or some just level of platform moderation, right? Like no one would want to use Airbnb, where like anyone can list, including people who are like really bad hosts, or like there's no knock-on effects of that. And also people wouldn't want to use Airbnb, where just people who trashed previous apartments can go use it, right? Like that would be the ultimate permissionless platform, but it would suck as a customer of Airbnb. And so ultimately, hopefully the markets can take care of this, but my plan is to have meta decision markets appoint individual members who then we're working with Gabe Shapiro, like our lawyers, on what they would actually be, like what the mandate of the committee would be, and the rules they would have to follow, but they would be able to overturn decision markets, or potentially even take some sort of emergency powers over projects. And yeah, I think another thing that's not at the mechanism level, but is really important for reducing uncertainty is institutional participation, right? Because like if you as a founder have a bunch of tiny holders on your cap table and you don't really speak to any of them personally, then you don't know, you have less uncertainty over whether they want to liquidate you or whether they're like bullish or bearish the project versus if your cap table is like 50% funds that you speak to on a regular basis, then that allows you to say like, hey, at least as long as these funds still believe in me, like I still have X percentage of my balance sheet. And hopefully you also believe that those funds, like I do think funds have the benefit of they look more credible, right? Like Felipe goes on a podcast and he wears his like colored shirt, which is just like, as a founder, it's like, okay, I'm working with professionals. They're only going to rug me if I actually do something bad. Yeah, I think that's quite important. I think earlier today it was quite interesting having 8-Bit ask founders like what do they think about liquidation, and I mean yeah, two I think just said like yeah, it's my fault if I get liquidated. Like that's pretty sick that like we have this selection effect of MetaDAO is only attracting the most stoic founders I think today. Like that is cool to having being invested in those coins, but like also we want to increase our market into maybe not the most stoic founders who, yeah, can want more certainty over their runway. And yeah, so that is pretty much all the mechanism changes that we're working on right now. There's some other stuff that we're piloting or like experimenting with. Like we've built a system that we call private token, which is yeah, imagine like some of you maybe are Echo users, and you know that Echo has a quiz that you've got to go through before you sign up, where you answer stuff like, yeah, do I think that the token will definitely go up, or like, am I going to get mad at the founder if the token goes down? And if you answer yes, you're just like not allowed to become an Echo user. And so we've built this program that allows us to do a similar thing. Where like we could have a quiz, like a intelligent investor quiz or something like that, where you ask whether someone you try to suss out whether someone's going to be a good participant in the ecosystem and helpful to the founders. And yeah, and so we already built that, and we're basically just like we talk to founders if they want to use this. There's obviously trade-offs, like they get less distribution. But yeah, I think these are like the core mechanism changes that we're working on to, yeah, improve MetaDAO and hopefully get like, I mean, the goal is to get a unicorn or many unicorns on top of MetaDAO. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, sure. I can take a question. Like, yeah, Leo. Yeah, so all of this will definitely need to go through at least one decision market, probably multiple. I mean, yeah, maybe we even need to go through decision markets for every single project on MetaDAO just to like maintain their sovereignty and not like just like introduce a new structure on them. We actually, through our legal contracts, we like it appears that we are allowed to just at least go through a MetaDAO decision market that's like this is going to be the new system, and yeah, and obviously projects can exit if they want. But yes, I don't think. I guess the question is like, I mean, yeah, it'll have to go through decision market before any of this is implemented. Yes, yes. I think it'll probably be structured similar to Congress, where it's like only one new like Congress has it so that people join and exit in staggered ways. So like, yeah, maybe only one new person could join per month or every 3 months or something, and only one new person could exit just to maintain stability.
Yep. Is there any part of the MetaDAO 2.0 like cell pool stuff that has an impact to oversubscribed rounds, like buy wall? It like felt similar like buy wall vibes. I didn't know if that like had any part in it or if you thought about that.
Yeah. So no, it doesn't really like the cell pool. I think it would just be when you participate in a raise, you would understand, okay, say 25% of the token supply is going to go to the sell pool post. And it's maybe in the future, but like we're not planning on, for at least the MVP, having that be adjusted based on how oversubscribed the raise was. Buy wall, yeah, I mean, this was influenced by buy wall. I think the buy wall didn't really work because, I mean, there's a bunch of reasons why we scrapped it. I think one is just like it makes it so there's no risk if you're an investor of participating in these raises when like there should be some, right? Otherwise, you just have a free option of like, okay, I participate and then either it pumps and I sell or it doesn't and then I get my money back. Versus here, it's like it is buying back at some discount to NAV, so you have less risk than you otherwise would. Like it's probably not going to go down 99% on day one, as like ICOs on other platforms actually have on Solana. But it is unlike buy wall in that there's not just like some fixed price. It's like trying to move around the market, and yeah.
Similar to the first question, how do you solicit feedback on changes to MetaDAO mechanism design?
Yeah, I talk to founders and I talk to investors.
Don't you think that having like the buy wall makes sense to an extent, in the sense that if it's trading too much discount to NAV, then it should be brought back. But why would you want to sell the tokens if it's a higher premium to NAV?
If the company wants to raise more money.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would it be configurable in the sense that the team can choose what percentages on both sides they want to sell or buy at?
Yes, the team would be able to set the initial pool size, and they would also be able to turn it off if they're like, okay, at these prices, I don't really think it makes sense for us to dilute. Yeah. Also, none of this is like final, but I will like we're actively developing all of it, and yeah, I'd say at least for each one of these changes, at least 70% probability that it actually makes it into production. Yeah.
Pulling up the Ranger liquidation, have you considered mechanism design changes to the liquidation process so that the person to that chapter 11?
Yeah. So I think one nice thing about having well, I guess I think that Ranger liquidation should have happened based on the facts and circumstances. So I don't want to change the thing of whether or not it happens. But one thing that we've noticed with liquidations is that they're all kind of special, or like they all have their own rules. And maybe we'll need to keep it that way for the projects that have existing investors. But for the new projects, I think we can just have like a standard rule. For example, yeah, with ZKFG, one of the proposals that the group tried to get through was a proposal to have a buyout, but then just like to pay the ZKFG holders, they would just do a TWAP, like a buying TWAP over 2 days. Which is like obviously kind of sucks if you're a holder and you're just not constantly watching. Thankfully, it didn't end up actually getting executed. But yeah, like I think we should have standard terms where it's like, okay, for every liquidation, it's like you have maybe a year to redeem. After that, it goes into some pool. And it's just based on the exact stablecoin calculation. Of course, it could also be complicated by projects like Solomon that have non-USDC in their treasury, but like for the standard project, that should hopefully cover the bases.
Hi, mate. Yeah, you're looking for people like less stoic founders, which I think is interesting because it's all kind of based, right? And I'm looking at the hostile takeover function. Do you think that's going to make it more likely to happen that there's takeovers, that the fact that you kind of like operationalize it into the mechanism? And how do you sort of square that with the stoic founder thing?
That is a good question. I mean, or good question and good point. That yes, the existence of the instruction could make people want to, like the existence of the button could make people want to press the button. I mean, in theory, the button already exists, but it's kind of just one giant amorphous button that people can like press in different ways, and maybe they don't know that they can press it in that way. But yeah, I guess it's possible. I'll have to think more about that. Cool. Okay.
Thanks, Proph3t.
Good.